Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Engineers from the Home Desk series, where we're talking to our engineers and leaders about the various things that you can do to virtualize a business. And our hope is that you'll be able to use some of these insights into your own business operations as well. And today I have with me Sonal Vaidya, who heads organizational development and effectiveness at LTTS. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can effectively virtualize training programs. So hi, Sonal. How you doing? Thank you so much for being here with us today.
I'm doing great, Akshay. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. So Sonal, first question, with workplace trainings and face-to-face meetings being canceled across the world, if there's one business activity that's hit really hard, it is workplace training, right? So what are some of the things an organization can do in order to virtualize their training programs? What are some of the critical things that they need to keep in mind during this transition phase?
I think that's a really pertinent question, Akshay. And I feel there are a couple of things that an organization should do if they're going the virtual way. The first thing that they should do is conduct a rapid triage of the entire portfolio of learning offerings and set priorities for what will go on digital only format and what will go on virtual format. Now, certain offerings and certain trainings which have a socio-emotional format attached to it and interpersonal skill building should go on virtual simulations or higher end moderated virtual training. The second thing that they should do is set up a learning response team, which is a cross-functional team, which will help your employees adapt to the new environment. Thirdly, have learnability included as your key measure of success. Because when you go the virtual learning way, you definitely want to know ease and speed at which the learners can learn and acquire new information. And lastly, since you're really dependent on technology, make sure that you have the desired bandwidth and the capacity to go ahead and deliver the trainings.
So Sonal, remote working is new to a lot of people, right? And they're looking for guidance in order to set a routine for themselves and to be more productive. And then you've got a whole bunch of first-time remote managers who've never really managed teams remotely in terms of workflows, in terms of getting work done from people. So what are some of the tips that you have for us to be more effective?
Yeah, I think that's a question that's been asked to me a couple of times in the last 2 weeks. And I pretty much tell them that there's a quick checklist that you may want to keep in mind. The first thing that you should do is have a daily check-in. Wherever it is possible, let it be one-on-one, face-to-face via video. But if that is not possible, then you can also use other means of communication. Secondly, set expectations early and clearly. Now, every business has its own set of expectations, whether you're working remotely or virtually. So expectations around what the working hours should be, what the availability should look like, how you're going to communicate with each other should be set clearly so that you can work towards the same goals. Thirdly, which I feel is really important, is to create a kind of an inclusive culture. When you're working remotely, people tend to have this feeling of isolation and getting that secondary consideration. So communicate a lot. And when I'm speaking about communication, another thing which really comes to my mind, when we talk about virtual communication, is brush up your online communication skills. We all really ace it when it's face-to-face communication and people can see us emoting. But when the communication is virtual, it's important for us to be precise, to be succinct, and yet we should be able to verbalize our feelings. So that's an important skill to master. And Moreover, I feel that one should focus on the outcomes and not get bogged down by activities and micromanage. The focus should be on the bigger goal. And lastly, just trust your team, be flexible, give them the freedom, and just have that belief that together you will be able to achieve all your goals.
So Sonal, you run a lot of very critical technical and leadership training programs that have, typically, fundamentally, always had a physical, a classroom kind of setup. So how big a mind shift change has it been to virtualize all of these programs?
Right. I think, Akshay, this is a very important question that each and every organization should ask themselves. That setting up, a virtual training setup is not about a physical infrastructure, but it's got more to do with mindsets and creating paradigm shifts in mindset. Now, one of the mindset shift is about personal ownership. So pretty much fostering a culture of accountability and personal ownership, where we're telling our employees this journey is yours and for you to walk on this path. And I think the best thing about doing that is when you foster accountabilities, your employees are more likely to take ownership of their own development while building their confidence in their process too. The second mindset shift, which I feel is really important, is having that curiosity and having that explorer's mindset. There is tons of information present out there. And if you really have that innate curiosity in you, then you will be able to curate your own learning. And both these things are very, very necessary if we want to democratize learning, which is actually the objective of virtual training.
So Sonal, one very important part of any program is feedback and assessment, right? So what are some of the things that you're doing in order to make sure that people are getting the most out of these virtual training programs? And then more importantly, they're able to apply it into a professional setting as well.
When it comes to learning and feedback, we pretty much do follow the Kirkpatrick model. And we take feedback at each and every stage. So the first feedback we take, which is more at a reaction stage, where we go ahead and roll out surveys to really find out whether the course was relevant and useful, and was it really something that they could go back and practice back in their real life environment. The second one which we do is to capture learning, which is done in terms of pre and post assessments. The third one is more on, if we were to talk about an application, to really see whether it brought about some kind of performance improvement or change in behavior based on learning. And here we use a lot of different methods like peer-to-peer feedback, methods like 270-degree feedback. And lastly, what we try to do is we even try to see the ROI, or like you call the ROE, which is the return on expectations, by seeing how it is then getting reflected in their business metrics. And throughout this process, feedback is very, very important. Especially, if you're doing anything which is virtually curated content, then feedback is also done real time.
Thank you, Sonal. That was very insightful. Thanks so much for taking the time off to do this. So that was Sonal, the head of organizational development and effectiveness. We hope you found this series useful, and we'll be back with more. So until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and thank you.